Hey, this is SportsSlaw with Lomas Brown, the pro.
And Deb Schneider, I'm the prof. And together, we're the pro and the prof.
Hey, Deb, how are you?
I'm good. And welcome to SportsSlaw, episode 38.
Well, will you tell the people, will you tell our friendly people where you're at right now, where you're broadcasting from?
I'm broadcasting from Florida, and I am being safe, and I am wearing my mask, and I'm not going outside.
That is great. I'm glad to hear that. As you know, as you don't know, the governor gave her address tonight, and she's very encouraging, trying to keep us safe here in Michigan, getting a lot of resistance from that other party, but I'm glad she's doing what she's doing to keep us safe and try to get us reopened as soon as she feels we're ready to get reopened.
Right. It's really, it's really important to think about how we're all going to be safe, and the fact that we're all getting vaccinated now. We've talked about Doc R and Dr. Derman about getting vaccinated. We've talked about all kinds of aspects with COVID and how it's really flipped sports on its head to a large extent. But, also this happened in 1918, and we got back. We
did. We got new leadership. And, the one of the big things that the governor was talking about today is trying to get the schools back open, trying to get sports going back with some of these athletes, because it's been a big component, and they go hand in hand. They really do. Education, sports, so she's really trying her best to get us back open. And like I say, get things back to normal as much as she can, especially for these kids here.
Right. COVID fatigue is real. It's real. And the mental health issues, getting the kids back, getting the adults to have some element of normalcy. And, I think tonight we've got some great guests who we're going to be talking about training and about preparation for college. So we're going to, I guess, pivot a little bit from this COVID thing, and let's talk about getting back.
Yes.
So, I think that's really important. We have a physical therapist, Dan Wolocko, from St. Joe's Mercy Elite, and he's going to join us and talk about physical therapy and keeping everybody, our athletes and everyone, in good physical shape. And we also have Mike Kostoff, who is with Total Student Athlete. You're the founder of Total Student Athlete, and that's getting kids to college. And I know COVID has affected both of you. Can you give us a little bit of?
Let me say this first, Dave, too. I've been working with Mike for years. I don't know how many years, Mike. It's going way back, but he's been he's been an advocate for this from the first day I met Mike. Been doing a lot with the kids, trying to get them eligible, keep them eligible, let them know what they have to do to stay eligible so they can take it to the next level. So he's just been a very, very big advocate for the kids in our community. And I think we're blessed to have a guy like Mike that's really doing a lot and really pouring a lot into our youth. So, Mike, it's good to have you on the show, you and Dan. It's great to have you guys on the show. And like Deb said, talk to us about what you're doing so everybody understand what's going on and where do you fit at and how you can help.
Well, I'll tell you, we're Mercy Elite. We kind of represent the youth in this area for their athletic development, and we specialize in athletic development. We put into physical therapy, sports medicine, and sports performance training. What we try to do is get the youth at the right ages and develop a firm foundation for stability so they can kind of be resilient through struggles as they get older. There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of kind of false things about performance training, development, sports specialties. And then Deb mentioned either the mental emotional pressure on these kids, even outside pre-COVID, was just intense. And so that's only kind of ramped things up. And so these kids come to us looking for help, their families looking for truce, looking for trust. And So we try to assess them on an individual basis and make sure that they're nice, sound, and strong going forward, and trying to help be contributors to society and moving society forward. And so partnering up with Mike and looking from the physical side of things at that athletic development and going into the academic side of things, a lot of these kids have aspirations to play sports beyond high school and into college. And when they come to us, we want to say, well, these are the things you need to do. And these are the realities of it. And these are some of the hurdles you're going to face. And if you run into any problems, we're here for you, and we want to be trusted in that. So Mike, if you want to share a little bit about what, how our relationship started and what you're doing and how we're plugging into each other, go ahead.
Sure. Well, I hate to say we don't want to be off COVID, because right now there's going to be a crisis. There's a crisis going on with COVID in terms of our senior student athletes, especially going into, we in the past, like in normalcy, February, the first Wednesday in February was always National Letter of Intent Day. Great story. Lomas, he was there. He's played it. He's seen it. Right. And with the NCAA changing COVID, adjusting to COVID, like just in a sport of football alone, which that's the monster, that's the big dog, right? And there's 85 scholarships for Division I, and they're full rides. But with these seniors or anybody at a college NCAA program, that's allowed for now another year. So that means the colleges are keeping the scholarship and not giving it away to the next freshman class. So there's going to be hundreds, I don't even know. I obviously the data's not out, but there's a lot of Division I football prospects that if it wasn't COVID would be getting full rides, financially paying for their college education. And we're not really addressing that. I don't think. I don't see people saying what's going to happen to them. And I talked to a lot of college coaches and friends of mine that are in the business, where the Division I's, they're pretty much pushing towards to the juniors right now. So we're going to have a lot of kids just going, where's my chance? What happened to it? Well, a lot of the college kids stayed. They took the extra year. They took that 6th year because of COVID. But the NCAA didn't offer more Division I scholarships. Again, not just in football, but you talk about the small sports of girls volleyball, basketball, baseball. Dan's pretty good in baseball, more than I am. But so that's the COVID issue we have. Immediate intervention has to happen. How do we give these kids that? How do we get out of COVID and give them a chance at their dream? So that's the part I just want to make sure we all have to talk about, because I don't think the educators are talking about it. Now, from my standpoint, a total student athlete, former college coach, recruited the state of Michigan for 6 years, I think, and just walking into high school after high school and finding hundreds of kids that, here's the question that and this is what we're doing with Mercy Elite. When Dan and I met, Dan, what's the first thing we do? We said, Dan, if a kid says he's a college athlete, ask them what their NCAA core GPA is. Mm-hmm. And 90% of our kids, I can show you studies, but the bottom line is 80% of 9th and 10th graders have no idea what the NCAA core even is as a policy. And that's absurd. This has been around since 1995. So it's not the kids aren't able to play or have the talent to play at the college level. So many of these hundreds of these kids just don't qualify academically because nobody told them the rules. Yeah. And Dan sees these kids on his side because it's like, we asked that question, and it's, what's your NCAA core? I don't know. Didn't your school and your counselors and your administration and your coaches talk about how to take the steps to be recruited? No. Okay. Good luck. And I can tell you a number of kids I worked with that did not qualify simply because their grades were not good enough. And they lose full rides.
I'll let you know a lot of these pressures on with this recruiting and their academics and not knowing the truth of how to go on beyond high school. They come in here and most of the kids we see have training injuries. They put so much pressure on themselves that they're physically, mentally exhausted. Most of the kids' energy comes from their mind. They're worried about this. They're scared about this. They need answers. They don't know what's going on. They're waiting for someone to find them. They just want to be seen. They're sending out videos. And they come in the clinic and they're trying to do stuff physically. And now they're putting more pressure on them to physically train, to develop. And they think there's this linear progression to training, and they just break down. And so the first thing I got to go, do you have enough energy to even train? Is it good for you? How are you going to get your energy back? You got to give them confidence. You got to give them competence. And the biggest thing they're looking for is hope. They're looking for somebody they can trust. And when they get some hope, they start to heal a little bit. And by sharing the truth and giving them reality, it does bring in a sense of hope. And they also have to understand this is their role. This is the reality of who they are. And, they got to face that. And they got to do it with someone to accompany them along the way.
Right. So I guess what I'm hearing from both of you is really we have a problem right now because of COVID. We have a group of kids who simply are going to be left behind unless they're able to somehow rise above juniors, somehow show their strengths. Mike, I think you were saying we've got 85 scholarships, per school for football. Are they not going to school? How are you addressing those kids who, beyond the physical injury, who beyond the grades, are just born in the wrong year?
I guess that's the reason we are so happy for this platform, because I'm not working with, some teams I do talk to, but I'm not in the recruiting world where I'm helping families individually. I have friends that do that, but that's not my niche. I'm not here to be an assistant recruiter. I think that's on the high schools, and that's on the coaches, and that's on people who, I don't like playing that role. What I liked and what I believe is to teach the real rules of I always gotta talk about playing a game. Like when you're a kid and you know how to play trouble. I use my trouble all the time because I like the little dice thing. You know the rules of the game. So we have all these kids, and it's not just this COVID year. Yes, they're going to be left behind.
Right.
So I mean, we have a lot of issues. So let's balance them out. One, COVID year. These seniors, they're limited in number of opportunities because the colleges now don't have those scholarships to give to the freshmen because they chose to give them to the 6-year kid. So I'm going to take a 23-year-old kid and give him another year because he's committed to my program or she's committed to my program. I'll give her another year because that scholarship should go to her, and she gets a 6th year. And hey, she's 23 years old, or he's 20, and I'm not getting an 18-year-old freshman. So those seniors, what's going to happen to them? That's a big question. That's a system-wide question that the NCAA does not appear to address yet. I don't know if they will. I don't know if they're going to say, okay, let those seniors, right, you're born in the wrong year. You're a 2021 class.
I don't know how better to put that.
Yeah, so that was one issue. So I'm personally, I don't work with all those families. I have friends that do and hear their stories, and they're just trying to say, you got to maybe a division. So a lot of Division IIs are offering scholarships, but those are partials, right? Those are partials, and they're going to have to find somebody to pay for that. It's different than getting a full ride. So those kids maybe take a junior college approach. Maybe, I don't know. That's an issue that we have to address. Somebody has to address it. It's a need out there. But the other side still in itself is just all of the student athletes knowing the rules of the game.
That's my biggest thing, Mike. But that's my biggest thing right there is I think the approach needs to be before high school. It needs to be before high school, because you're right. A lot of times it's not the kids, or it is the kids not knowing, but it's the parents not knowing either, because a lot of parents don't know what it takes or what are those core classes that these kids have to pass. I had to learn that too. It wasn't as prevalent with me because I ended up getting a scholarship, and back in the day it was a little different. But you're right. I think these kids it has to start in 9th grade before they get to high school. They need to know what I have to do to become a successful athlete and take it to the next level. So I think by us waiting till high school, I think it puts a lot of burden not only on the kids but on the families too. And I think that's something, like you're addressing. It's not just this COVID year. It's what's been going on for a lot of years. And it's just not knowing. That's what I think is a lot of the problems. And, you try to put a lot on the counselors, and, they have a full plate too. They really do, with other kids, other non-athlete kids that they have to deal with too. So I think my thought is, try to get them, or we have to try to get them before they get to high school, so they know when they go to high school what they have to do to stay on track to get a scholarship.
So we just launched with Mercy Elite. Toast an Athlete and Mercy Elite just launched this month. So it's something new that we're all trying to figure out. And talking with Dan and the Mercy Elite people, it's the question is, okay, what's the problem? Well, the problem is, Lomas, as I kind of summarize it this way. It's hard to tell parents they need this information. So what we did with the information, meaning we did a proactive approach. So here's classes for the middle schoolers. Exactly what you just said, Lomas. So we have a proactive approach. Start the 8th graders before they get to high school, before they get to summer vacation of 8th grade, because they need to prep for the most important year in high school, which is the 9th grade first semester. So that's what we're offering a class to middle school people for. And then we have the intervention class, which is for the high school kids, because basically this week, by the end of this week, every kid who's a semester school, they're going to have their first ninth graders going to have the first NCAA core GPA because the transcripts are going to be set. So what we're offering is, okay, let's talk to the high school kids a little differently. So we do high school, we do test prep, we do college and career readiness, and we do the three class sessions. But here comes the bottom line: is that how do we get to the parents that don't know this information, and convince them that they need to be into our education program? They need to understand what we're trying to teach them here at Mercy Elite with the education, so their kid is prepared. Their kid does know the rule of the game before the game starts. Because by the time you get to the junior year, it's too late for a lot of these kids.
Exactly.
Right. And I think
yeah, go ahead, Deb.
I was just going to say one of the things I think it's important to point out to everybody who does have a child who's thinking about going to play in college, and pretty much anybody in youth sports is convinced that their child is going to play in college. Okay, that's why we put them in youth sports, so that they can play in college. Very few trombone players make it.
That was at me.
That was at you. But the NCAA, and I think it's important again to point out that the NCAA has their rules, and in order to be recruited and to get a scholarship and to stay in school and to stay on that scholarship, you have to meet GPA requirements. You have to meet not just the physical, you don't just have to be a great athlete. So I think what you two are putting together is so great. And I know, Mike, I was looking at the website and I was saying, I saw something about 740 days. I mean, basically recruiting is not I think I'm going to go to I think I'm going to go to college and swim or play football.
Well, we got to get past I guess I'll say to the high schools and the counselors, back in the day when you were a senior, you always had to go to your counselor and they said, what are you going to do with your life now as a senior? Mm-hmm. Okay, now we probably push that down to the junior year. But really, we have to have this entire pendulum shift back to middle school like Lomas talks about. Because here's the thing. We talk about athletes because that's where our niche is. I can't talk music to a music kid. I got volume up at, high or low. That's all I got. I don't know what treble. I don't know bass. So I'm not a music person. I'm not an art person. I'm not an academia person. But here's the thing. Any student that wants to go to Michigan or Stanford or Harvard, it starts the first day of their freshman year. So we're not selling anything different. And Deb, you make this point about these limited expectations that the NCAA has. But any kid who wants to play sports can play sports in college. It's not about ability. It's about affordability. Mm-hmm. Because Division III, yes, the NCAA does not give them scholarships. But if you're a athlete at Division III and the coach is recruiting you to play for that school and you have a 3.5 GPA, they will find money for you to be able to afford to go play at that Division III school because you are an athlete. Right. Just like they give all the smart academia kids great scholarships and making them compete academically. So, the NCAA doesn't give scholarships to Division III. Yes, they don't mandate them, but Division III schools give money because you're a great student. So how about again, that's what I mean. The ninth grade first semester is the most important year. Well, every time these kids walk in, I have a thing I developed called the 3+.
Yep.
Every time you go to class, be a 3+. Hit the triple. You can't get a C because C's don't count for anything. Mm-hmm. And the thing about the GPA is important, but according to the NCAA now and NAI, because we forget about the NAI schools like here in Michigan, right. Siena Heights, Concordia, Ann Arbor, right across. I live in Livonia, so right across the street. Dan, who is that?
Madonna,
right? Madonna is open football. Madonna is open football and has 24 or 36, 20, I think 24 scholarships. Mm-hmm. So it's the test score. What are we doing with SAT and ACT prep? Because the NCAA core determines what score you need. If you have a low GPA in terms of NCAA core, you need a higher test score. Well, if you have a high NCAA core GPA, your test score can be low. It's a sliding scale. We had this conversation. I had this conversation when I was in Dan's facility with an athlete, top level, Division I, offers all over the table, high elite school in Michigan. She's a great student. He's a great student. He's got a good GPA. Okay. And the question was, okay, do you know your NCAA core GPA? What's that? And they have offers, okay, but that doesn't mean the college can take them. And they have great grades, okay, but what's your SAT or SAT test have to be? Have you checked that yet? Do you know? Have we empowered the parents to know this information? And it doesn't happen. It's not happening. So test score, GPA, and then from Dan's standpoint, and this is where Dan comes in, and he empowers me because he says these kids mentally are just being fatigued,
So I got a question for Dan. Dan, you talk about these kids being mentally fatigued. You talk about the injury factor with these kids, but how much of that goes into these kids are now more sports specific? These kids are, when they're young, they're throwing the baseball or they want to be baseball players, and that's all they concentrate on. So that's it. Whereas back in the day, we used to play all the sports. You know what I'm saying? We used to play all of them, but now it seems like these kids are more sports specific now on what they want to do. How much of that causes injuries to some of these kids?
It's huge. It's really what we find is we look for the root cause. Like, everybody's a victim right now. I mean, people are coming in with their shoulder hurts, their knee hurts, or they're stressed out. These are all victims. But the culprit behind is they have major gaps in their development. And that's where Mike and I come together. You're talking about middle school kids. They have major gaps in their development in organizing, preparing, planning, and just reading. Those are the main factors to get those good test scores. And that's what Total Student Athlete does, is it attacks those. And it attacks them at the right age and teaches them so that they can establish a foundation academically. And we also find this out physically. These kids aren't playing multiple activities. And the biggest thing about an athlete, if you want to define an athlete, it's somebody who's confident and competent in multiple activities. It doesn't mean you have to be good at it or specialize it, because when you're confident and competent, you can contribute. And you can contribute to a community. That's your team. And we were talking about COVID's done. Well, we had a huge issue before COVID with identity crisis with these kids. They were sports specializing, and that was their identity. What they did, what their actions were. That's not your identity. Your identity comes from when you were born. How God made you, your family. And a lot of these kids play sports. If you really get down to it, they play it because they want to hang out with their group, their boys, their girls, their teams. They want to go play college sports because when you go to college, you don't want to just be a number. You want to have an identity with that team, with that school. When you look at Division I recruiting, they want to see how these kids did for the team they identified with. It's mainly their high school. And so when we go back to middle school, we want to fill in these gaps that they're missing in physical development by getting all the sports specialized training. They're not confident and competent in other things. And a lot of these kids who can't get the academics and do the scores, they're not confident and competent in something as reading and organizing. So when you can teach those and build those foundational pieces in middle school, by the time you get in high school, you create a stable mindset and a stable physical body that you can withstand struggles, because we're all going to have struggles. The parents think that if I specialize my kid and it's going to be this linear development, that they're not going to struggle. They're going to be comfortable. And that's even academically. They're going to get through college and get a good paying job. You don't think you're going to struggle? You got to have a foundation that you can handle struggles and changes in life. And you got to be resilient, because that's the reality of it. And the best way they can do it is they can identify with a group. And that's what college sports are great for. And that's what we're trying to do right now. We are one of the few communities that kids can come and kind of come together and continue working on that, establishing relationships. And they're just hoping to get back with their teams. They're just hoping to get back to their schools. It's their identity that's at stake.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. When you're an athlete, once you stop being an athlete, we've seen this from the young right on up to professional athletes. When you're no longer the athlete, Lomas, you can probably speak to this. It's your identity. It's who you are, what I do. So I've got a couple of questions. You're both referring to middle school. Well, middle school is 6th through 8th grade. I mean, sometimes we're talking 11, 12, 13-year-olds. What is the optimum age? Because you're talking both about physical ability, Dan, on your part, and the mental and the academic ability, and they do intertwine like this. What is the optimum age that you'd like to start with someone?
Well, I mean, I'd start them as literally 6, 7 years old. There's different activities that the body just kind of soaks up in their development, and a lot of it is without instruction. You don't want to learn about form. You need to, your body's changing. You have all these tools to work with, and your brain needs to practice experimenting with them. It's just like when you go home and have dinner with your family and you learn certain things, then you're supposed to go out to school and practice what you learn, then come back home and get loved and solve the mistakes you've made. It's the same thing with becoming an athlete. You need to learn with this changing body, and you're growing, and you got to go out and compete and have fun and play, and then got to come back and kind of recuperate until you hit a certain age where you become physically mature. And like Mike was telling me, you got to start learning to read. Most of these tests and schoolwork is depending on your ability to kind of read and interpret, right? And so you got to do some basic things with that and preparing yourself. And you have those books, have a planner, organize your day. You don't have to get specialized in specific training on certain things at a young age, because you don't want to train them like an adult until they're an adult, right? And so that's the misconception.
Oh, I still don't want to be trained like an adult.
Yeah.
So, like, I'll just give you an example. Like in middle school, when girls from 11 to 14, or even boys, they mature a little bit later, 13 to 16. The best thing they can do physically and for their mentally to get energy back is to run around crazy with a lot of speed and change in direction. It's got to be chaotic. It's those small-sided games. They don't need to be rated and ranked at those ages, because it slows you down. It creates pressure with a changing body, uncertainty. So rating and ranking at that stage is not good physically.
So how much should the colleges bear? How much burden should they bear? Because I mean, you got some colleges offering kids scholarships in the 8th grade. Am I correct? I mean, USC, some of those big colleges are offering kids scholarships earlier and earlier. So how much do you guys think the colleges of that burden should they bear?
Well, when I talk to the college, I'll let Mike talk. When I see the college coaches right now, their kids are not academically sound. They're not strong enough to handle the combination of both academics and athletics. And a lot of them can't be trained at that level early on their first 2 years because they don't have a foundation. They're not physically developed athletically to handle the rigors of the training, neither academically or athletically. So they cut corners. They try to get their A's. They try to, get their scores, but they really don't have a strong foundation, and then they end up breaking down. I mean, that's what we're creating. We're creating an image-based athlete with nothing on the inside.
Mental health issues, mental health.
Yeah. Well, and I think, Lomas, to those, what we have to, and it's kind of like everything in society right now, we focus on the outliers, the extremists. Giving a kid an offer in 8th grade, extremists. I mean, who are we talking about? Who's the mainstream 95? Blue chippers are blue chippers. We're not going to do anything about that, right? So we're not talking to all those kids. If you and again, that goes back to the parent. My kid's the best. Says who? Your kid's the best. And so control what you can control. If the 8th grader gets an offer, okay, great, congratulations, dude. Do you have the NCAA eligibility rules under your wraps? Do you know what it is? Because a lot of those kids don't know it, even though they get offered. And Lomas, they may get offered in 8th grade. That head coach may be fired.
Right.
He's offering kids in 8th grade because he's probably desperate a little bit. I mean, I'm sure Nick Saban's not offering kids in 8th grade. He's got a lot of time to wait because when he wants them, he gets them. But I'm just saying, it's everybody thinks everything is 100% guaranteed, and nothing is, right? So why? Who cares? The kid got the? Can you control that? No. My daughter's in 8th grade. She can't control any college offers. I don't want her to. So let's talk about the masses. Let's talk about those middle people. And so it's the extremists. Stop looking at that. You can't control what the Division I coaches say. Here's what I tell the kids. How do you know if you're a Division I coach? I mean, how do you know if you're a Division I athlete? Who decides if you're Lomas, we've done many presentations, and I ask them, how many guys, who decides if you're a Division I? All the kids will say what? Me. No, you don't. Who decides if you're a Division I football player? 105 Division I head football coaches will say, yes, that kid can get a scholarship from the school. If those 105 coaches don't say it, I don't care what your mama says. I don't care what your coach says. I don't care what the media says. You're not a Division I offer, and you can't control that. So why worry about it? What can you control? I can control my GPA because maybe I'm not a Michigan or Michigan State or Ohio State kid, but I'm a 3.8. How about Purdue? How about Northwestern? All right. How about those? Those are still good, right? But I had to have my GPA to get offered there. I can control my GPA. I can control my test score. And Deb, you asked me about the young kids, as Dan talked about. Our kids stop reading in middle school because they're going to their sports.
Yep.
So they're not reading and increasing their reading at grade level in middle school. And I'll tell you a quick story. And I know Ray's saying we got questions, but here's a story of a kid. We tested a kid.
From somebody who knows you, by the way.
Oh, okay. We tested. I don't have many people that know me, so thank you whoever's on here. It must have been the text I sent. But anyway, so here's a story. We had an 11th grader, but we're doing the SAT in another school I was working. I used to be an interventionist. I am a teacher, by the way. I have a degree in education and learning and a master's in education and motivation. So I think this is the greatest motivator for high school athletes is to be a college athlete, because if you achieve the GPA, if you're over a 3.2, the money line, you can find a place to play and your parents can help you pay for it. It's affordable, nothing to do with ability. So point is, quick story, junior took the test, ACT test, the student scored a 12. Couldn't believe it, right? And if for parents who don't know who are on here, a 12, if you fill every answer out the same exact letter, it's going to be a 12. Okay, so we get the teachers give her a reading test. She's an 11th grader. She scores at a 7th grade reading level. Look at our state literacy scores. Our state is not doing very good in literacy. I think we're 43rd in the nation. Okay, so the girl's like, that's not right. Here's the bad part of the story, because she said in 6th grade, I had a 7th grade reading level. So of course the teacher goes, how many books have you read since 6th grade? Well, none. Well, then your reading level didn't go up because you stopped reading in 6th grade. So, like, what do we talk about literacy? Can the students, and are you reading 30 minutes a day? My 14-year-old, 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Go read, right? If you're a middle schooler and there's this big form that we have, you will read 1.8 million words in a school year if you read for 20 minutes a day in 6th grade, 5 days a week. 1.8 million times 6 years, you've now found 10 million words that now are going to prepare you for that SAT test. While your kid's in the car, we got to go to practice. Make them read a book. You want to have a fundraiser? Don't sell candy. It's bad for the teeth, bad for the diet. Dan doesn't like that. Have a readathon. How many pages can your kid read in an hour? Right. So organization. How's your binders? Like, you guys are very busy people. Do you have a planner? Is it your phone? Like school, we can't use phones. Kids know how to use their phone. Put their planner on their phone. Put reminders on their phone. Use your alarm. You got to study tonight. I got a test tomorrow. Use technology to help these kids organize themselves. I take a picture of binders that are out of control. I mean, they can't hold binders. How do you have a student who can't hold binders and organize them weekly? So those are easy things. It's fundamentals, right? So
reading is incredibly fundamental. We do have a couple of questions that came up, and I want to get to them before we run out of time, because I think we can talk about reading and training. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm
sorry, I got a little excited there.
So we have Amy Christine. Hi, Mike. I'm shocked this came up in my feed, but here you are. I'm coming from a hockey family. I have 2 kids in AAA hockey. Can you get in with an organization like MAHA, which is the Michigan Amateur Hockey Association, or just the individual teams?
I will come to speak to anybody that asks me to come speak to them. So
there's your answer.
We offer to a lot of people, but and again, it goes back to the whole they don't know, and there's not enough time to work on education, and that's not our job. The school's job. Okay, well, are you getting it at your school? Yes, the school, but if you're not getting, that's what Dan and I are trying to do. This is our platform that we're trying to go. Dan's got a lot of clubs we hope to get to, but if you're going to spend time in athletics and your kid's dream is to go to college, who's got the academic education piece? Every organization in the world should have that, but they don't.
Yep.
Right. And Mercy Elite is one of the only one that now has someone in charge of education. So,
which is great.
Yeah, we'll come anywhere. Just go to Ray. I think there's a website, Total Student Athlete. It's pretty easy. TotalStudentAthlete.com. Send me an email. Give me somebody to talk to. We'll love to talk to you.
Yeah.
Yep. And then for Dan, what's the toughest challenge for a young pitcher recovering from Tommy John surgery? So we're flipping totally.
Go to Mercy Elite.
No, well, most of these kids, they're at a really young age. I've seen these kids as young as 11 and 12 years old get the surgery, and it should not be that way.
Yes.
Most of those kids are trying to throw hard to reach a certain number, and most of the Tommy John stuff and the weakness comes from loss of head control. So that's a postural issue. It's a developmental issue, and it's from rating, and it's from ranking kids. And they try to throw their head to the side to throw their arm hard. It puts pressure on it. But I tell you, at a younger age, sometimes, I'm just going to be honest with you, if the younger they are, they're okay with it because it kind of gets them out of some pressure. You'll see, I see a lot of pitchers coming in younger with arm injuries, and it's kind of a way out. And I hate to say that, but they'd rather be doing some other things. It's easy to be a pitcher and get rated. But when you get the older guys who they go to first year in college, they're out there, they are the pitcher. Their whole family knows them the pitcher. All their friends think of them as pitcher, and then they tear their elbow. Now they don't have an identity. They're known as a pitcher, and now they're not pitching. And what are they going to do? At least when you're younger, you can join another sport, try something else. I mean, you don't always come back throwing faster. That's not the case. And you got to address that problem. So it's, I don't think the younger kids deal with it that bad. Initially, they're thinking, oh, I'm not a pitcher, but they didn't really know what they're going to be anyway. But when you get into the end of high school and college and you've already put in and your parents have invested so much money for the last 5 years, you feel like you've let everybody down. And that's a big factor to overcome.
Yeah, I've been watching the Tiger Woods special. I don't know if you guys have watched that, but, Earl Woods just groomed him to be a golfer. And just the torque that he was doing just at a young age just wore his back out to where he's having, he's had these back problems and everything. And it just kind of goes to what you're saying, Dan, about, again, a lot of these kids or a lot of these parents just putting these kids in sports, just thinking that that's what they're going to be. That's what they need to be. That's how they're going to get the scholarship. That's how they're going to get to the pros, is being a quarterback or being whatever in sports. And like I said earlier, man, you just need to enjoy it. And I think that goes to the mental part of it too. Like you said, kids being kids. Let a kid be a kid. Let them enjoy what they want to enjoy. Let them experiment with all types of sports and discover themselves.
Yeah.
So I think you're making a great point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're not talking about necessarily only elite athletes. We are talking about the total person and, middle of the road athletes, people who, kids who just want to be kids, play and belong to a group.
Right.
Yeah.
A group.
It's funny how we identify them, right? Like we have the blue chippers and we rank everybody, the division, the 4 stars and all this other stuff. Why can't they just be student athletes? Why can't they just be kids? Right? Who cares where you go play? What's wrong with Division III? If that was if your dream is to be a college athlete, why does it matter? If you find a school that you love and you're going to be at a place that loves you back and they're going to treat you right and you get an education to help your adult life, why does it matter where you go?
There's some great programs, and there's a question about how you keep these seniors encouraged and guide them to the goal of going. Well, I'm sitting here at Schoolcraft College. I'm a big believer in JUCOs. I mean, say these kids that they're seniors, they don't know where to go. Well, there's a lot of junior colleges where you can continue playing sports, get the experience of doing it at that college, find your confidence and competence, give you a couple of years of development, and then you can get picked up. You can have a coach. You can go that route. So there are later periods for late bloomers, and especially now, these 11 and 12-year-olds are 12th graders that maybe missed this year. Well, you got a couple more years. You don't just have to jump right in right off the bat. There's a lot of other opportunities out there. And you kind of got to go with it. You got to learn about those opportunities and make the most of it too. So.
No, that's a great point. That is a great point. And we owe it to our youth. We really do. We owe it to it. So with things that are going on now, so I know you guys said that we got athletes stacking up now because of the COVID and, the colleges having to keep kids for 6 years now. So how do you see that playing out in the long run? Do you see a balance coming back once we kind of get through this COVID? How do you guys see that playing out?
Well, I think the colleges coaches are looking at the juniors right now. They're looking at the 2022 class. Mm-hmm. So they'll just take the juniors, and if they have extra scholarships left over for whatever reasons, kids decide that they get hurt, they decide to go on and not take another. They're just going to go to the 2022s and offer a bigger class. And the NCAA may, like say for football, expand the 25 limit. So again, we don't know how it's going to play out. But again, your 2021 class, what about them? There's really a lot of unanswered questions that I'm not in a position to. I can have an opinion on it, but it's not going to help the kids in terms of what's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 months when they graduate.
Yeah.
The NCAA really does have to step in, and they have stepped in a lot of ways with the transfer portal and all that. They have stepped in to some extent, but the NCAA's got a lot going on right now.
So Deb, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this about the name, like, and the images. Do you think that helps now, like what Dan and Mike were saying, these smaller colleges, these D2s, these D3s, because we know with the name like and images that's coming, we were thinking that the big schools were going to get all but do you think this will help some of these smaller schools get some of these better athletes that have maybe left behind?
Well, just to let everybody know, name, image, likeness is that the athletes, instead of pay for play, they can be paid for use of their name, image, or likeness. This could be a video game. It could be doing a commercial for the local, car dealership, whatever. I think it's going to give student athletes, a much bigger ability to go to school. And Mike was talking about the cost of going to school and how difficult it is sometimes, but it will give them a chance to perhaps earn some extra money to keep them in school if they don't get these scholarships. And it's going to cut across all schools, because even if you're D3 and you've got great grades and you're there and you're a good athlete, people are, you could sell your name, image, or likeness. So I think it's going to help. And I think, what Mike and Dan are talking about, that total person, that total student athlete, is so important, because at Lomas, as you know, it takes the full package to get ahead.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I mean, man, this has been educational. This has been, and I hope a lot of people watch this, especially the parents, that have a young kid that aspires to be an athlete, and just start them younger. I mean, you have to start looking at this a lot younger than high school. You need to start looking at this now. And like I say, with Mike, what you've been doing, you've been out there doing this and pumping this for years and years, talking about, what a kid needs to be eligible, and looking at the core, not just the overall, but it's the core GPA that counts. And, again, it's time. It's time for our parents to step up. It's time for our administrators to step up too, to help these kids.
Well, I think what happens, Lomas, is after the parent gets to their senior year, they're just so frustrated and worn down, right? They just leave. They just gonna walk away. And then so we don't ever have a change in the system, because why didn't go back and help the young kids go, be a bridge builder and go back? But the parents are just like, I'm just too tired. I want to get out of this, because they're so frustrated with the process. So,
and we have your book up on our screen right now.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your book, Win All Four?
Well, it's basically the guide. So when I was doing the recruiting from the college side, Division II, NCAA, Division II, Division III, I mean, it was something that I was just kind of creating as people wanted me to come help with the NCAA rules. And so it's a guide. It's here. How many scholarships do you get in football? We know 85. So it's NCAA approved. So all the NCAA eligibility stuff is in there, all modernized to this 2020 year. It's a guide. Every semester you have to know your core and you have to own your GPA, and you've got to own your core GPA. So it gives that sheet every ninth grade first semester. What's your NCAA core? So any kid who's a college athlete, a parent, an educator, ask the kid their NCAA core GPA. And so that's what that book is trying to teach. And again, I did, oops, my alarm was going on. NCAA did allow me to copyright all their stuff. So it's all up to date with what they have. And it's just a guide for parents. And then when they go meet with the school counselor, the parent can ask, it gives them some questions to ask. Like, is my child on track with the NCAA? We, on the bottom of that page, that counselor should sign it and date it, because it's a check and balance for that parent and the kid's dream. Because I will tell you, I had a kid that was at a school pretty close to my home here, and he did everything he was told to do. And we got to camp, and in August, the NCAA said, your math credit you took as a senior year was not a half a credit. It was a quarter of a credit. You're short by a quarter of a credit. You're not eligible. We had to pull him off the bus going to Charleston, West Virginia, as a 6'2", 225-pound receiver. And he lost his entire senior year, and he can't play. All because, and all the counselor had to do was say, oh, I made a mistake. It was my fault. Please sign me on the waiver and put the blame on me. But she's afraid the kid was going to sue them. as a lawyer, right, Deb?
Well, that's how we get sports law, right?
Yeah, I mean, because if a kid loses a Division I offer, who's responsible for that $100,000 scholarship they just lost?
Right.
It happens every year, but the parents don't know that you never taught them that. So who's liable on that? So it's all about making sure this guide I wrote. It wasn't what I wanted to do. It just happened. I evolved to it. So every semester,
Available on Amazon.
Available on Amazon. Yep, it's on Amazon. Yeah, it's a $26 I think investment. So $6 a year, $6.50 a year. I mean, just be a 3+.
Unless, of course, you start them at 6, like Dan's suggesting.
But hey, if they keep reading every day. It's every year in 6th grade. Just keep reading. Be a 3+. The only thing, hit the triple. If I'm a 3+, my dreams can come through my GPA. And Lomas, how many? You hear this all the time, college coaches. After they ask you your name and what school you go to, the next question every recruiter asks any prospect: what is your GPA?
Mm-hmm. You're right.
They didn't ask anything else but because what the registering for that student, that coach is, do I keep recruiting you or do I walk away and go find somebody else? Because time is precious in recruiting. So if the kid says I'm a 2.2, the coach says, good to meet you. I'm out of here and I'm taking my scholarship with me. I got to find somebody else. So there's a reason that happens. And they don't care about your 40 time. They don't care about your vertical jump. They don't care about your bench press. So they care about what is your core GPA. And then if you qualify in their whatever the standards are, I'll keep talking to you.
Yep.
It's pretty simple.
This has been incredibly useful and incredibly helpful. And I would suggest that everybody who's listening to us get Mike's book, number one.
Thank you so much.
Make sure that you log on to totalstudentathlete.com. Make sure that you talk to Dan, that you check out mercyelite.org, and that you start early and realize this is for everybody, not just the elites.
Well, we're offering classes. We have classes scheduled that if people are interested to come do this either virtually. So we're teaching this more. We're going to teach it, like I said, this 3-class system we have at Mercy Elite, the NCAA rules, the college career readiness stuff, the test prep, right? We need to talk to 8th graders about the test prep. Why? Because are you reading every day? For every ball, you should have a book in your hand.
Right.
Could you imagine what we do with our student athletes if they had a book with every ball they had? Imagine how we change education. Yes. So we have classes. We could do a just like this. We can register for the class. Mercy Elite has the platform, and we're going to just continue this education. So we appreciate the opportunity to give us a platform to start it, because Lomas and I have known each other for a long time, and we got to make changes, especially right now with COVID. Right, we're gonna have a lot of lost. We have too many lost kids. We need to help these kids. And Dan, I know what you want to close out with this. I said, Dan, you want to close it out from your side? I mean,
I love our mission. We Trinity Health serve together in the spirit of the gospel as a compassionate healing presence, and that's what we're doing together. So
I'm sorry. That's Albert. Yeah, that's Albert in the background.
That's a great name, Albert. That's a great name.
I love that. So, well, thank you. Thank you both for joining us. And thank you, Lomas. And I think you got to let the dog out.
He heard us talking about grades. So, yeah, I got to let him out. But hey, I think you guys do a great job. And I hope everybody takes you guys up on the offer, because I think it's very, very important, especially here with our youth, because we got to get the youth. We have to get our youth.
They're our future. We got to fix them. We got to help them.
Right. And the parents are the key to the youth.
That's right.
Well, hopefully we'll be in contact. We'll do some more collaboration together and just continue to get our team bigger, because it takes the community, right? It takes of us a big group of people to push this message. So, and we appreciate the platform. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And everybody check us out on SportsSlaw. We're now on Spotify, so we're very excited about that. SoundCloud. And thank you, everybody, for listening.